Hey Sean, did you guys come out of the game with any injuries yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're good. The guys are still trickling in right now. We started our recovery and stuff after the game. And so my initial talks with Reggie, yesterday after all the guys were getting kind of checked out was positive. But as always, sometimes after they get some sleep, guys come in with stuff. So they're kind of still trickling in right now.
Do you expect Steve to play on Saturday or on Thursday?
We'll see. So not sure about that yet, but
I'm on the
he's
Zoom
doing a
call,
great
but I
job.
can't
He's
hear
done
you.
everything that we've asked, and I think he, had a really good week last week, getting himself back rolling. And so, love Steve. Looking forward to it. The Thursday games are interesting, so we'll see where we're at.
What makes Puka so good?
How would you answer that?
A lot of things.
Yeah, I agree. I think play style, toughness, demeanor. I mean, you just see the improvement that he's made. But I mean, when you look at the aggressive hands through the catch point, the ability to be able to create separation, create after the catch, being at your best in the most pivotal moments. He's doing everything that you want. And I think, like Matthew said after the game, I think his play style is exactly what we're looking for. I think it rubs off on the whole team. We got a lot of guys that play that way, and guys can go ahead and hit mute on one of those Zooms in the background too. But I'm just messing with the artist. But no, he's amazing, and I just love the mindset. I love him as a human being, more importantly. But I think the simplest things you look for in a receiver: get open and catch the football. He's doing that at an incredibly high rate, and then what he does after the ball's in his hands is really it's special stuff. And in a lot of instances, because of the way he competes without the ball, it helps him in some of those instances as well.
We've talked about his toughness in terms of being able to come back into a game after injury. But you talk about after the catch, what he does with his body. Can you just kind of explain why that's unique to him?
I think the people that would be best able to articulate it would be the ones trying to tackle him. I just know this. There's a feel that he has on game day that, man, this guy's taking his game to a different level. And I don't even think you can appreciate it when you're watching it on film unless you're physically present or actually trying to, feel what that feels like in the moment. And he's a grown man. He plays the game the right way. And man, I just think the way that his spirit, his competitiveness, we have a lot of guys like that, but I think the most excited I saw him yesterday was for Tutu Atwell making that play. You talk about a guy that enjoys his teammates' successes and just has he's got a great vibe to himself. He's outstanding, and he has been a catalyst for what we've done this first month without a doubt.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Stu,
Sean, just a quick follow-up question on Steve. Is there anything in terms of checkpoints or landmarks that he still has to hit from a rehab standpoint before he can go?
Yeah, I think it's just how he feels, and I think a part of that is his communication to us, talking with Reggie, and then the evaluation of what he looks like, relative to being able to go and be the Steve that we know, and that's been a really good player for us the last few years.
And then Matthews at or near the top in several passing categories statistically. Just through the first 4 weeks here, what have you seen from him that's allowed to play at a level that I know you're already accustomed to seeing, but just compared to those numbers?
Yeah, I think and I don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I've never been a stats guy. I'm interested in one play at a time. Are you playing in the timing, rhythm, the accuracy, anticipation, getting the ball where it is? And he's done a great job of that, Stu. And I think in a lot of instances, I thought he's played, really well. I think he's seen the field well. I think that you show me a great quarterback, I'll show you a guy that has some challenging snaps, and hey, how do we respond? And nobody does it better than him. I thought he made some key critical plays at the most opportune moments yesterday. For him to recognize some of the different looks and be able to get the ball where it goes is a real advantage that we don't take for granted. He is, it's already well known. I don't think anybody will be surprised when he was putting a gold jacket on, but this guy loves playing. I mean, I know he's though when he's ended up trying to, act like he can't run anymore when you watch how fast he was running after Tutu Atwell's touchdown. So he's got more in the tank than he's acting like when he's taking off on some of these scrambles. But I love everything the guy's about. And I feel really grateful to be able to do this with him, Stu. And he played outstanding, and he played his best in the most important moments. The 2-minute drive at the end of the half, the 2 drives that we had to have at the end of the game, and then ultimately orchestrating a good 4-minute operation where Kyren has 2 good runs, and then we're able to take 2 knees. There's nothing more beautiful than that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Gary.
Hey, Sean, with the way that you guys have neutralized, I guess, Saquon Barkley and Jonathan Taylor the last couple games, is this kind of what you envisioned in terms when you guys were adding Puna and Landman in terms of run defense?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. I mean, these are 2 of the premier backs, and like I said to you yesterday, here we go with a guy that is equally as dangerous as a runner and a receiver that we're playing on Thursday night. So I think our defense has done a really good job of neutralizing 2 of the best players in this league. Obviously, there were some instances that, there was some penalties on that play that got called back, but some good learning ops for us in terms of being able to, finish all the way through the echo of the whistle with tackling. But I've been really pleased. I think Gift Smith and, Drew Wilkins and Joe Caniglio, they do such a great job with our fronts. G Money with our inside backers and Chris Overall and Aubrey and Beak and Coach Harris, really just our defensive staff as a whole. And then ultimately the players bring it to life. I've been really pleased with them the last couple weeks as it relates to what you're asking against 2 excellent runners, 2 excellent schemes that had some different flavors to it, but both really presented a lot of challenges. And I thought our defense was a key and critical factor and 2 good performances the last 2 weeks.
I know you're, just starting to dive into the 49ers or doing it quickly, I guess. But what are you seeing, with this version? Is this kind of the same type of group? Is this a team that's evolved? What's kind of your first impressions?
Yeah, it'd be probably premature for me to get too much into the weeds. Here's what I do know. Any time that you've got a team led by Kyle, they're going to be tough on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Obviously, Robert has a great influence, and they look like they played really well defensively. They found ways to win football games. Haven't had a chance to get into the Jacksonville game yet, but nobody has more respect for this group than I do. We know what a great challenge it's going to be, but that's what you love about this league is every single week there's great challenges. But this is the 49ers, a team that plays tough and physical on both sides of the line of scrimmage. They challenge you a lot of ways schematically. And then they've got some really special players that elevate those around them. And that's what I would imagine I am going to see on the tape as well.
And then finally, we've all seen how the 49ers fans love to come to SoFi. Do you anticipate that things might be turning a bit in your favor in terms of Rams fans kind of neutralizing that element at your home game?
Hey, we certainly hope so. I think, they've obviously got a great fan base. I blame my grandpa for that, a lot of the success they had in their early years. But I've loved the home atmospheres we've had this year. I look at the Texans and yesterday's game. I certainly felt our crowd. I thought it was an advantage and an edge to us. And I'm looking forward to seeing, as many Rams fans come out and support us on Thursday night. And, the 49ers always travel well, but I'm hopeful and optimistic, Gary.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Adam.
Hey, Sean. Akello, before his injury, was your corner who would line up against those bigger physical receivers. In the 2 weeks in his absence, how would you kind of grade out how your cornerback room has held up without him?
Yeah, I think here's the first thing I would say. I think you look at it, Akello's a stud, and I was really pleased in everything that Akello had done, and even going back to the previous 2 years and then the way that he had started off. And like I said, I think we feel really fortunate that we've got some good depth. I think Jacoby Durant's played really well. I think Forbes has had his moments, and he's really learning, a lot of things as we continue to grow with him and support him. And can't say enough about the job that Aubrey and those guys do of continuing to watch a guy that, man, has some really cool gifts and is going to continue to just get better and better the way he approaches it. And sometimes you learn the best from some challenging moments, but I think Jacoby Durant's been really good. And I think Darius has had 2 good weeks the last couple weeks. Obviously A.J. Brown a week ago made some great plays, but I thought those guys did a nice job playing their best in the most important moments yesterday. I thought our rush was a real factor where Jones had to get the ball out of his hand a little bit quicker. So I thought those guys were solid. And I thought, Aubrey did an excellent job of feeling out a good rotation as the game kind of unfolded. And we'll see what that looks like for this week.
We talk a lot about quarterbacks and receivers developing relationships in year one, but when you have a receiver QB combo like Puka and Matthew who are in year three now, what does that amount of time together allow you to kind of allow them to explore in terms of like how their relationship and dynamic can
Yeah,
grow?
I just think there's an understanding of, I think they see the game through the same lens, and I think, repetition's the mother of learning. And I think it's also the mother of being able to build trust through different experiences. They've had a lot of accumulated reps together, where they're able to be on the same page. I think there's a ton of trust that Puka has in Matthew in terms of, where the ball is going to be, where is he putting it, why is he putting it there. I think there's an understanding of the types of things that they like versus different coverage contours. And so, there's just a ton of trust. There's a ton of rapport that those two have had that's been built up over the last couple of years, as you alluded to. And it's two great players that are bringing some really cool stuff to life, and it's fun to watch.
And then, like, what is the key to preparing for these Thursday games, like as a coaching staff? Like, what are not to go into trade secrets, but like, how have you kind of learned to prepare for these short
Yeah,
notice
I think you have
games?
to be decisive. You have to be able to make quick decisions. Make sure you understand where you're at. What's the opponent doing? What are going to be the best ways to make sure that there's clarity for our players, but getting their bodies turned over for Thursday, and then ultimately giving them a plan that allows them to go. Have some things that we try to be able to give them advantages, but not overload them with information because everything's accelerated in a short week. So clarity, decisiveness, allowing guys to feel like they have that peace of mind and they're mentally and physically as fresh as they can possibly be. Those are some of the key things we try to focus on. You don't have time to overthink things, so you have to, make quick decisions.
Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
Brock. Hi, Coach. What was your thoughts on Josaiah Stewart's performance last night?
I thought he was solid. He played a little over 20 snaps. I thought he did a solid job on some of the early downs. I thought he did a nice job in some of the known rush situations. Could have maybe drawn a hold on one of the great rushes that he ended up having. And then, we'd used him a little bit in some different coverages. And I thought he did an excellent job with some feel underneath. Ended up rallying to a check down where he kind of was sticky on Jonathan Taylor. He's a stud. He's just getting better and better. I think Joe Caniglio does such a good job with that group as a whole. And I was really pleased with really all four of those guys. But Josiah is only going to continue to get better and more comfortable, and love where he's at. And I thought he was a big-time contributor yesterday for us.
Going back to earlier in the game, when you went forward on 4th and 1 at your own 45, why did you want to be so aggressive, and on why that play call on the quarterback sneak?
Yeah, I mean, felt like we had a good look. It was less than a yard. That's a play that I expect us to be able to make.
And then my last question is, when it comes to the defensive secondary, especially the safeties, has there been something that you've seen from them this year that you weren't expecting through this process?
I don't know that it's not anything I wasn't expecting. I think, you look at it, I think there's a lot of continuity. You look at the guys that are playing the most, our top four safeties, when you're looking at Q, you're looking at Cam, you're looking at Kitch, and then you're looking at Tank. Those guys have all played, they're really comfortable. I think Beak and Aubrey do such a good job. I was so pleased for Cam Curl. I thought Cam Kitchens had some play ops, and he's so hard on himself. He'll want to make some of those picks, but man, he had some good concept triggers. Quentin Lake is so valuable. And man, Tank McCullough just does such an excellent job being able to play, some different roles. What a play he made on the screen where he's able to, kind of fight through and knife through traffic and make a great play on Taylor. But Cam Curl making 2 big picks. I thought he was great in run support. Nothing really surprising, just really proud and pleased with the way that group has continued to progress.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nate.
Hey, Sean, I feel like each week we ask you about the split between Kyren and Blake and kind of how that shakes out. Just how do you kind of assess how that went? And what's your general philosophy between, feeding a player who's hot in the moment like Kyren was early in that game versus, making it a committee and getting other guys involved?
Yeah, I think, I think it was good yesterday. I think there was some instances, I think when you run the football, those two guys, they do a great job, but running the football is, football is the greatest team sport that there is. And so, I think the important thing for us is to get both guys involved. Certainly if there's a hot hand, I think that's something that the situation dictates, but I think we do want to try to be disciplined and making sure that there's a lot of trust in both of those guys to be able to play. And not be short-sighted and in the moment. What I think my favorite thing, and I told this to him, one of my favorite things about Kyren Williams is he's at his best after a moment where, man, I put him in a terrible position. I don't think that was his fault at all on the one fumble. And just you watch his response and his resolve. And I thought it was important to give him an opportunity to be able to continue to play through that. And he answered the bell in a big way. I love him so much. I love Blake too. And I thought they both did a good job within the framework of what they were asked. There'll be some opportunities where, hey, let's be a little bit better in terms of Matthew and Blake being connected on some of the checkdowns. But I think you want to get them both involved. I thought yesterday was good. And then I think it's important to understand if there's a hot hand, you go with it. But it's also important to be able to get both guys involved, if that answers your question, Nate.
Yep. And then the way you guys finished that game as a passing game was obviously pretty electric. Not just the big play to Tutu, but Stafford finished 9 of 10. Just when you watched it back, what do you feel like kind of got that group going even more as the game went on?
Yeah, I thought he saw the field well. I thought he got the ball where the coverage dictated. I thought we protected. So I think, it always starts with, Matthew did a great job of orchestrating, a really 2 good scoring drives, seeing the field, taking what the defense gave him. You got a little bit more regulated rushes where I thought our line battled and gave him time to be able to get through progressions. Just really good execution by Matthew at the critical moments. And then for he and Tutu to be able to connect on that one play, that was really special. And, an excellent job by him recognizing, the coverage that they were in that particular instance. Awesome.
No,
Hey,
no,
Sean.
no fault,
Hey,
no
Sean.
fault, Coach. We got Greg and Dennis.
All
Hey,
right.
Sean.
Hey, Greg.
Hey, when you have 2 receivers who are studs, elite Pro Bowl level guys who get
Yep.
about 90% of your targets from two receivers, what do you say to the other receivers to stay ready for a play like Tutu made, or a guy like Jordan who's played like 2/3 of your snaps and had 6 targets?
Yeah, I think it's important that, first of all, we feel really fortunate. I do think it's important that the distribution of the ball, we're cognizant of that and still getting those guys involved. And you just, you continue to, let those guys know, hey, where are those examples? You just never know when that moment's going to arise. But what a cool credit to Tutu. I think you talk about the enjoyment of others' success and watching how happy his teammates were for him and him being ready in the moment when ends up winning on a high angle cut versus a man coverage, makes his guy fall and ends up having the juice to be able to finish, with the post player in pursuit. And, I think you just keep it real with guys. We're going to try to continue to get those guys involved. Talking about, Puka and Devontae, but I think it's also important to be able to get your other, 3 eligibles that are on the grass for you when you throw the football, whether that's your backs, tight ends, or your other receiver. And so, we're cognizant of that. I think you want to get those guys involved, but also make sure that, we're balanced and, and that's something that we're aware of and we'll continue to try to monitor and figure out ultimately what's best for our football team and for our offense to move the ball and score points.
Yeah. Was that Jared? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Was that Jared versus best game of the season? What did you think of that play where he ran over the center?
That was awesome, man. I mean, you talk about timing it up with the play clock going down. It looked like a trip to me potentially, but I thought he was awesome. I think really the last couple weeks, the energy, pre-snap demeanor, the vibe that he's brought to our group, I think he's been excellent. I think it's been a reflection of the way that he's approached his preparation throughout the course of the week. Him having an ownership and an understanding, Joe and the defensive coaching staff with Coach Shula, being able to, earn the right for our guys to get into some of those positions. Verse was a stud yesterday. I thought it was his best game of the year for sure.
Thank you.
You got it.
Wrap up with you, Dennis.
Okay. Hey, Coach, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good. How are you, Dennis?
I'm doing great.
Doing good.
Considering what happened in Philadelphia, how important was it for Joshua's confidence to come right back, line up, and kick those 2 field goals?
Yeah, I thought it was huge, and I thought our protection, sometimes some challenging moments can bring out the best in you when you have the right kinds of people. And I was really proud of that group as a whole. I think you watch, and that unit was a really good field goal rush operation. They strained, they tried to attack our protections, and I thought we did a really good job. I give a ton of credit, to Chase and Ben, and then ultimately our players being able to execute based on the things that we focused on. We were automatic on the extra points and the field goals. I thought Josh was really good, Thought Alex and Ethan did a nice job with the snap hold, the timing of it, the trajectory of the kicks. And then, Josh does a great job in those kickoffs, and he saved one, on that one return that popped out. Looked like a good post player coming out of the middle of the field to be able to knock the returner out of bounds. So Josh had an excellent game. Not surprised because he's shown that he is a resilient, mentally tough guy. But I think it's a credit to him and really, the total group of being able to respond after some of the things that forced us to be able to really go back in the lab and really lean in and address some of the things that need to be addressed. And that's going to be a consistent approach for us as we move forward.
And as a follow-up, over the course of the last 4 weeks, what has been the effort that you've seen from your ball club?
Yeah, I've loved it. And in this group, I've been pleased with it, and I think, you're always continuing to try to take steps in the right direction. But what does the tape say in terms of the effort, the competitive character, the competitive stamina that we have? Are we relentless? What does it really look like? And I've seen that. And, that's going to continue to be something we want to lean into, Dennis.
Okay. Thank you, Coach.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Coach.
All right. Thank you, guys.